Okay.
I was going to ask you for you to get on your HPV soapbox, because as a school nurse, a high school nurse, I have gotten on a HPV soapbox by encouraging immunization, blah, blah, blah. Well, last week, at 47 years of age, and in the middle of my breast cancer treatment, I was diagnosed with low-grade cervical dysplasia and HPV. Mm-hmm. Holy crap. So guess what? My 17-year-old son will be getting his Gardasil immunization, and my soapbox is getting taller. So
good for you. Let me just say this about HPV. It is a very common sexually transmitted virus. It is the cause of almost all cervical cancer cases, very rare. It's very common. I call it a coochie cold. But the reality is that if we had a vaccine for breast cancer, if we had a vaccine for prostate, whatever kind of cancers, this would not be a question at all. But because it's linked to a sexually transmitted disease, it is. And I'm not here for controversy. What I am here for in my life is ending cancer. And this is one of the cancers we can end because we know the cause, we know we have a test to detect it, and we have a vaccine to prevent it. I can't tell people what to do. All I know is I know what cervical cancer has done to me. It's burned my body from the inside out. It's poisoned my body, and it's killed my womb, and it's forever changed my life. And I don't want anybody to go through what I went through. We've got 5 minutes. Oh, there's a question in the back.
To run.
I don't know much. I don't know much about the HPV. What do you call it? Inoculation. I don't. Like I said, I don't know much about it.
Yeah, or vaccine.
But I have friends who have girls that are coming up in age and boys into the teenage years, and so it's been a conversation while we're out together. And can you just explain, like, maybe what the up and the downside is, and then how you would argue for it? Like when somebody has an argument, like, do you mind?
Yeah, no. So here's the biggest thing with HPV. People want to know, why is the vaccination age the age that it is? And it's because...
Can I add something to that for a second?
I have a chemo brain, so somebody remember the first part, because I'll forget.
Here in Texas, Rick Perry ordered it for all children, and it caused a huge controversy and a lot of backlash. So put that in your answer here as you go along.
I am.
Okay.
I talk about this a lot. To answer the first part of the question, the reason why is because it's to get the vaccine before someone is sexually active, so before they're exposed to HPV. So that age, 11 and 12, because the reality that most people don't want to face is that people are having sex younger and younger. And teenage pregnancy has gone down, but STD is they've gone up. So that's why the ages are 11 and 12. Most times, HPV can clear it on its own, but if you have a problem clearing it, which this is what probably happened to me because I didn't go to the doctor for 3 years to get my PAP. Had I gone in for the PAP, I would have probably had cervical dysplasia. They would have taken a comb biopsy, done these LEEP procedures, all this other stuff. But the problem with that is that it wreaks havoc on the cervix. Even if you never get cervical cancer, it may be hard for you to have a child if you're a woman. If you're a boy, it's rare, but it happens. You can get penile and anal cancer. And that's a nasty issue to deal with also. So that's why it's younger. It's a choice. You don't have to do it. I've heard people, legislators, say to me who I've told my story, well, your cancer was found by a PAP. We'll just let women wait till they're old enough to make a decision on your own. So let me tell you that end of the spectrum. I had a PAP and it found it, but when it found it, it was too late. Had my cancer been prevented, I still would have had my womb, I wouldn't have the sexual dysfunction, and I wouldn't have the depression because of it. And if you need more information, I can send you plenty of stuff from our organization on it.
And throat cancer.
Huh? Yeah, and HPV also causes throat cancers and different things like that that are not coming up, so it can help with a lot of stuff. It's just a reality. Before Life Beyond Cancer in 2003, I would have never admitted that I had cervical cancer or HPV. I was embarrassed by it. But to me, it's important enough to fight this and bring awareness. So a little bit of embarrassment is okay.
All right, I'm sorry. What are the disadvantages?
There's side effects like any other vaccination, like any other one. You can even go on the CDC's website. Most people think that's a trusted website. Go there and you'll see people have burning sensation at the injection site. They fainted from it, but it's typical as any other injections. And I know there are a lot of websites out there that talk about deaths from the HPV vaccine, but as we talked about websites with their scare tactics yesterday, go on the CDC's website and look about those deaths that have occurred from the vaccine. Most of, and it's been a very small percentage, they had pre-existing conditions from something else.
I will say, you know, speaking to the whole decision thing about whether to have your child inoculated or not, when it first came out and Rick Perry tried to, you know, make it to where you had to have your child inoculated, it really angered me. And not because I am one of these psychotic blinders on parents. I don't expect my child to be perfect and not do anything. I'm not dumb. I was a kid. I was a teenager. My thing was, okay, you're ordering me to have my child inoculated. That's something that just came out, and you don't know what it may do to her in her 20s. And that was what bothered me about it. Now, having
and I
been
totally
here,
agree.
having
I totally
been
agree.
here, right.
There was no education before. It was just overnight on TV, in the media. Here's this vaccine, and you got to get it for your sweet little girls. I totally agree.
Right. That was
and
the
if I was a
concern
mother,
that
I
I
would have
had.
felt the same way.
Now, she's 11, and she is approaching the age when, you know, the next time I go in, they're going to want to talk about that. And so I've got a lot to consider. But I do appreciate being here and having heard your story, and it gives me another perspective on how to go with my child.
And for me, the important thing is knowing. I don't like health disparities. And part of health disparities aren't just communities of colors, it's not knowing the information also. So I want my cancer community to know that there's this vaccine out there that can potentially end cancer. Will it end cervical cancer completely? No, but we'll come pretty close to it. So it's about being educated and aware.
Okay, I debated whether even to jump into this. I must say, my daughter's 16. She has not had the vaccine.
That's okay.
She's not going to get the vaccine.
But there's no judgments here.
No, it's, I'm a Girl Scout leader. When Rick Perry decided to make everyone, I went on this is not, I didn't like the way it was marketed either as a cancer vaccine. To me, it's an HPV vaccine, and I've looked into it, and it only covers 4 of the HPVs. Those 4 are like 80% of the HPVs and stuff like that.
Those 4 are the ones that
right.
mainly cause cervical cancer, that's why.
But also, everyone has to make their own decision from where they're sitting.
That's
I'm
true.
sitting with, when the Hepativax vaccine came out, I got it for my child. My child died. You can't replace that. My children will not get a new vaccine. They did not get the chickenpox vaccine when it came out until, unfortunately, I, like the rest of the population, try it out. So sometimes you have to consider where you're coming from and what the situation is. That
I totally agree.
And
I do.
And it's certainly not Rick Perry, the legislature, you know, anyone's decision except for you, your child, and your pediatrician or your whoever your healthcare provider
And I
is.
hope no one thought that I said something different from that.
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I just wanted to say that.
Can I
I just
say something?
couldn't.
No, and thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing that. I do appreciate that, and I'm sorry for your loss. My problem that I have, and it's not with you at all, it's the people who don't think that cervical cancer is a real cancer. That they
That's
think
crazy.
less of, but that's what. But let me tell you, as someone, that's the reason why I was inspired by LBC to speak out, and that's why the first time I went to LBC, someone mistakenly said I was an ovarian cancer survivor, and I didn't correct them because I was ashamed, and I'm not a bad person. My cancer was caused by HPV, but I'm not a bad person.
You
Even
are
though
not
I
a
talk
bad
about
person.
sex. I'm still not a bad person, but that's how people perceive it. That's why when you see all these other cancer survivors here, you don't see cervical cancer survivors because they're so embarrassed and they're so ashamed. They don't come out because they don't want to talk because they're so judged. And so I take the heat. And this other survivor, Christine Bays, does. And this isn't to you. My tears aren't to you because I know you're going through your own thing. This woman is right. All I want for you to do is educate yourself. But for me, as a cervical cancer survivor, I'd love for someone with cervical cancer to be here too. But it's so hard for them because the first thing, especially from other survivors, is they get judged. Well, you had cervical cancer. Well, that cancer is caused by sex, so I had chemotherapy and radiation like anybody else. You know, my butt crack used to be straight, now it's a question mark because of my radiation. I had 100 staples from my belly button to my vaginal lips. I had cancer like anybody else. Personally, as a survivor, that's what I'm fighting for. I don't want anybody to die from the HPV vaccine, but I don't want anybody to die from cervical cancer either, because I almost did.
I want you to, I'm a nurse, so I don't see anyone as guilty for any disease they have, AIDS,
You
whatever.
don't, but a lot of people
I know
do.
they do. You are not your disease. And that's like
But it's taken a long
very
time for
hard.
me to get there.
And trying to get other people, which is sort of my little side advocacy that I do, getting like just the general public to understand that about any disease. They are not that disease. You are this whole interesting person that got this disease that anybody can get. And I get it from people, and even that get cancer, they're like, wow, I'm so...
Yeah, and I'm not ashamed of it at all. It's just, for me, this is more emotional than anything else, because every time I see my friend Alyssa, she was 32 years old. She had stage 4 terminal cancer. Her husband left her because he thought she cheated on him. She has 2 beautiful children that she left behind, both under the age of 5. They'll never remember Alyssa. And Alyssa suffered in silence. The only time she ever said she felt whole is when we bought her for a cervical cancer, for a cervical cancer conference. I never want anyone, I don't care what kind of cancer they have, to ever feel alone. And when Alyssa's mother called me, she called me from Alyssa's phone. I thought it was Alyssa calling me to tell me she was out of the hospital. Her mother called and she said the only time Alyssa ever felt okay is when she was with you guys. So for me, if there's an HPV vaccine, I don't want it to harm anybody, but I want people to be educated to make a difference and know that your child may get this disease that's preventable, and you don't have to go through these things that will fuck them up for the rest of their life, because that's what it did to me. That's the truth. I know we're out of time. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Tamika, we do have one person it's very important that you hear from.
Yeah. Hi, I'm a 1-year cervical cancer survivor. And I just want to say that you're just a really big inspiration.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that you're here. I wish I would have known earlier. So there is a cervical cancer survivor here. I have to give you my card.